Oh, would you look at that? It appears we're on the same page, my friend. What's up, guys? I'm Pencil here, and here we're going to do a breakdown / live reaction and review to Hundreds Why Sukuna winning makes no sense. And I find this hilarious because literally yesterday I made a video talking about whether or not Sukuna should win, and this is the moment this popped up in my subbox. The way 100 makes his thumbnails, because of the contrast he does, he'll typically do a rip of a panel, and then he'll just have a phrase next to it. I saw it, and I knew I had to react to it. And luckily enough, this isn't too long a video, so it's only 9 minutes and 50 seconds, so hopefully I won't be yapping your ear off for too much. I want to see what points of his align with my points, what points don't, if he adds anything extra. It's been a minute since I reacted to a 100 video. I feel like there's so many in his catalog that I do need to go back and react to, because I've been saving up his videos, I've been saving up Flames videos, I've been saving up a whole bunch of it, No Ops, I've been saving up Broken Ronin videos. There's so many videos I want to go and react to. And this one, I feel like I might as well open up the floodgates with this bad boy. So let's not waste any more time, and let's hop right into it. Editing me. Can I summon you to this plane of reality? I don't care if your answer is yes or no. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, the link to the original video will be in the description and down below, along with the link to Hundred's channel. The man recently just hit 60K. Yo, it is crazy and it's amazing to see other creators grow, because I still remember when this man was just at his, I think less than his first 1,000, and now the man's at 60K. His video quality has just been increasing and increasing and increasing, and he already had fantastic video quality at the start. Please go check out 100. If you somehow found me but didn't find 100, trust me, you will not regret it. The man posts consistently, high quality, high edited content. He's that guy. Peep him in the description down below on the link to the original video. Fun fact, I do like to, let me like the video real quick. Fun fact, I do like to yap extensively, horrifically extensively. This video is 9 minutes and 50 seconds. I'm not putting a binding vow on this one, though I probably should. I'm gonna yap for longer than 9 minutes and 50 seconds. Please check out the link to the original video. And if not, even if you don't want to hear me out, please go check it out and just tell him Pencil sent you. Every view helps. Every comment helps. Every bit helps. Trust me, it really, really does. It feels so weird because I used to, for the longest time, I was just a viewer. And honestly, I never understood when YouTubers said that. I now get it. I've been fighting the algorithm for years now. It's a hard battle. So please, every bit of support helps. Go check out the original video. Obviously, for Sukuna winning makes no sense. I kind of agree. I went over it in long form in yesterday's video talking about should Sukuna win. Ironically enough, I don't get why YouTube recommends my own videos to me. I'm logged in to YouTube. I know for a fact that that's my video. You can't bamboozle me. I'm not gonna click on it. But in the video, I kind of talked about it. Narratively, it doesn't make sense. Character-wise, it doesn't make sense. Morally, it doesn't make sense. Notably, I always say that authors are attempting to tell something or give out a certain ideal by the end of their narrative. You can have bittersweet ideals. You can have really human ideals. But, having the selfish guy who doesn't believe in the value of human life win after numerous characters sacrifice their human lives one way or another in order to defeat him, I just don't see it. The only way I see it is being subversive and crazy, because it'd be the first time a main villain wins in a popular Shonen Jump manga. And wins permanently. Because presumably once Sukuna wins, it's the end. Unless we see Sukuna versus the merger and stuff like that. And even then, it's a character we do know a lot about now in terms of Sukuna versus Tengen, who's a merger, who we barely know anything about. So I'm not sure how satisfying that would be, but no way should I see Sukuna winning. I'll make a video talking about why I think Yuji Todori and our cast and crew has earned the win overall, because I feel like I didn't talk about that too much. I just talked about how, narratively, it wouldn't really make the most sense. But let's see what 100 has to say. Let's actually hop into the video itself.
I think at this point, I can confidently say that Sukuna has never had a chance of walking away from this series as the victor, and happily so. This series ending with Sukuna defeating everybody and walking away has been a legitimate concern for a while now, and honestly, I can't even blame people for thinking that's a possibility. But with chapter 265 kind of changing the entire landscape of Jujutsu Kaisen by revealing the endgame purpose of the story that Gege wanted to tell through Yuji, I believe there's a 99% chance that Sukuna's getting clapped, no doubt. Of course, I value the time of both you and I, so I'll wrap up this intro. But I gotta say, if you enjoy content such as this, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and now, let's get into it.
Dead both.
From my perspective, Jujutsu Kaisen has always been a story that could be perfectly explained with this one quote from Aoi Todo alone. All of our allies, together we are Jujutsu sorcerers. As long as we live, our friends who have passed away will not truly have been defeated. It's not about sins or punishment. The moment we become sorcerers, our lives cannot be limited to such misfortunes. Looking for meaning or logic in death can at times defile the memories of those we've lost. Even so, what have you been entrusted with? You don't need to answer right now. However, until you find your answer, never stop moving. This quote reflects the never-ending marathon of Jujutsu sorcery that Yuji enters in order to exterminate the curse that is Sukuna. Those who have entered the marathon and have passed away are gone, yes, but there's more to their life than their death. Everyone who has come before you has entrusted you with something of their own to help you continue the never-ending marathon, and it's up to you to eventually figure out what you've been left with. Yuji takes his pep talk from Todo and utilizes it to continue fighting against Mahito, this curse that cannot value such a thing as this, a life and the value behind it. And eventually Yuji completely actualizes his belief in his final talk with Sukuna. This belief that stands against everything that our favorite fiend Sukuna represents. Jujutsu Kaisen has always been a story about living for more than yourself, for those around you. We see this through many characters in the story such.
Okay, I've kind of just been letting him go. Yeah, that's the thing. I want to tackle the initial point he made in the intro. I probably should tackle that sooner. There was a long time where Sukuna winning felt almost like an inevitability. It reminds me a lot, like notably, I'm old, so I still remember when the Naruto manga wasn't over. And I know that sounds crazy to some, but Naruto, the manga's been over for what, nearly 10 years now? It's like nearly been a decade. I believe it ended around the time My Hero Academia started. So like, it's been darn near 10 years. And I still remember, not even Kaguya, I remember Madara for the longest time felt genuinely like unbeatable. Like to the point where it would feel ludicrous if he lost. And to be fair, there are some people who think to this day that it was ludicrous how Madara lost and got backshotted. But still, Sukuna was in that position. But notably, while I feel like some people have fallen, not for the okie-doke I'd say, but fallen into the belief that, okay, yes, Sukuna's unstoppable, he's the strongest, it makes no sense for him to lose. I do ultimately think that's just good writing on Gege's part. The fact that for the longest time, I and many others, and some to this day, still believe that Sukuna's victory was inevitable, something that's on the table, the fact that we're having debates to this day on whether or not Sukuna's going to win, even though, like he said, chapter 265 goes out of its way to kind of lay down the overarching theme of the narrative and the fundamental ideological debate between our main character and our main villain, the value of human life and what humans are in the end, whether or not they are defined by their death, defined by their life, or defined by something more abstract, such as the memories they leave behind. Like, that is fantastic. That Gege managed to convince us to this point and leave us with so much fear. And hey, honestly, as much as I'm for the merger not happening, in the sense that I'm kind of fine with it, because I don't think the merger will be that interesting of a character, even the merger floating about as this possibility, something that could come in and shake up the narrative even more once again, that's once again just good writing on Gege's part. It's a fantastic way to keep us engaged week to week, time to time, arc by arc, and I think that's good. But ultimately, I do think the overall narrative, what it all stood for, what it all stands for, it would be kind of wrong for Sukuna to win. Just based on the narrative we've been building with Yuji Tadori. Sukuna Kaisen is a commonly used phrase, the Sukuna cycle. And I'll definitely talk about Sukuna Kaisen and the Sukuna cycle in its own video and why I ultimately think it's actually a good thing narratively and not a bad thing. And how it once again sort of calls back into the traditional shonen antagonist cycle of the Aizen cycle, if you'll remember that. Though admittedly the Aizen cycle wasn't as long in Bleach as I think it was. Technically, you could argue the Aizen cycle starts as soon as the end of the Soul Society arc, but like, realistically the Aizen cycle of battling Aizen wasn't actually that long. I'd more specifically say the Madara cycle, and technically the Obito cycle, but I'd really say the Madara cycle is where like the Sukuna cycle sort of gets its roots from. But with that being the case, I don't think it's a bad narrative tool, I think it's actually a good narrative tool. But in this case, it seems like it's done its job a little bit too well to convince people that no, Sukuna has to win. When narratively, character-wise, meta-wise, story-wise, I don't think the story's been building to that. I think Sukuna's isolation and the weakness that comes from it is ultimately the main reason why he shall fall. It's just the way the world works. But we'll see. Let's see what else 100 has to say. Because he's going on a fantastic point. Bringing up the Toto quote, that's something I never even crossed my mind. The idea that Yuji was literally told by a character in narrative, think about what that means. Think about what the meaning of life is, and think about how you shall approach that meaning, whether it be now or later. Just figure it out. That's good stuff right there. I didn't even think about that. So fantastic work, 100 so far. Let's hop back into the video.
As Gojo, for example. Gojo, despite being this badass one-man army, had always been a character who would prioritize the future generation of sorcerers and their growth before his own satisfaction. If anything, Gojo served as a warning against the viewers trying to become anything like Sukuna. Because when you compare the two characters, the key difference is the humanity that Gojo retains as a monster, whereas Sukuna is devoid of any at this point. And we see the effect of this through their purpose as characters. Sukuna lives to seek endless pleasure, which is simply unsustainable, whereas Gojo's purpose is to create a generation that will prevent anything like him coming out of it. A one-man army who can only rely on himself and has to bear the burden of single-handedly maintaining peace throughout the entire world. And this purpose would be formed from...
One thing I do want to throw in there, though. I don't know, I'll ask him, I can check with 100. He said Sukuna doesn't have any humanity. I disagree. Sukuna is still human. It's one of the biggest things that 265 lays down, admittedly more so on a subtextual level, but even Sukuna gets told that he's human too by Yuji. Except what Sukuna lacks is a value for humanity that's not his own. Anything that doesn't relate to him, he doesn't have value for, but Sukuna is still very much human. I think that's the biggest point of the character. And honestly, it's what makes the character complex. I'll be honest. If Sukuna truly was just a monster, a tornado, just a calamity, or even tried to write himself as one, then I think, or not necessarily write himself, but speak himself as one, in a similar way to another popular antagonist from a very, very popular series does kind of towards the end of their run, where they try to like justify their actions as the acts of a tornado, the acts of an earthquake, something that is just divine and beyond control, and you shouldn't seek revenge against something that you literally cannot control, and you wouldn't get mad at that. I think Sukuna is a person, and I think Sukuna knows he is a person, and Yuji knows that Sukuna is a person. That's why he offered Sukuna anything at the end of 265. Because ultimately Yuji still understands that deep down, beneath all the overwhelming power, beneath the arrogance, beneath the absolution, beneath the self-enlightenment, the twisted enlightenment that Sukuna's undergone to reach the pinnacle of creation, there still is a man. There always has been a man, and there always will be a man. That's why the fundamental battle here at the end of the series isn't the battle between a man and a monster, a man and a tornado, a man and a natural disaster. No, it's a battle between two men. Two men with differing ideals and different views on human life. Just gotta throw that out there. Once again, I think 100, I saw in another video, I'm remembering all the time I had 100 did talk about Sukuna's humanity in another video. So I'm assuming it's just once again to lay down the groundwork for why Sukuna winning doesn't make sense. Because, you know, evil dude, shown in manga. Bad vibes. Let's see.
The moment Gojo lost his best friend due to being unable to see him mentally deteriorate in front of his eyes until it was too late. Gojo, even in his final moments, would express a deep sorrow for believing that he was unable to give Sukuna the same feeling that he got from their battle. The once in a millennium chance to cut loose with all their overwhelming strength and convey everything they had to someone else in a world where none understood them. I mean, even in this same death chapter, we have Nanami say something like, "I'm someone who always looked back at the past, yet in the end, I would bet it all on the future." This referring to the curse he placed on Yuji. Speaking of Nanami, he himself also falls in line with the lesson of Jujutsu Kaisen and is probably the best example of it. If you remember from very early on in the series, he quit being a sorcerer for a brief period of time in order to become a salaryman, retire early, and live an isolated, peaceful life in Malaysia. That's all he's ever wanted to do, really. He despised being a sorcerer for the specific reason of having to force his comrades to accept that they'd be sacrificing their own lives for the sake of others. And after seeing this come into play when it came to his friend Haibara, I'm sure he was haunted by it. Gege Akutami himself would even state that when Nanami heard Geto had become a curse user, Nanami was able to completely understand why Geto would take this path, but he did not agree with it. Of course, where the two differ in their trauma is the fact that Geto had been mocked by the humans he had to protect, and that image stood in his mind permanently. However, Nanami would eventually return to Jujutsu Society when he'd visit a bakery and see a cursed spirit behind the girl at the register. Here, he'd be thinking about how his job does nothing but make the rich richer, whereas this baker is essential to the lives of many, allowing them to feed themselves daily. From his perspective, it's completely unfair that she gets paid so much less than he does. So, this makes Nanami decide to swat the fly head behind her. This would get rid of the back pain she had been feeling, and although from her perspective it looked like Nanami just randomly swung his arm, she knew he helped her somehow. So she'd tell him thank you, please come again. And Nanami here would then think to himself that he once believed that he had nothing to live for, and this moment served to remind him of the true value of a Jujutsu sorcerer. Being a Jujutsu sorcerer transcends just living for yourself, and once Nanami took that in, he returned to society. Even Yuji, our main character, would spend majority...
And you know what? Once again, this is what this is why I'm bad at live reacting to things, because like either A, I go into a yap session, or B, I get lost. Like I just start listening to the content creator. But an interesting idea that is brought up in 265 and hinted on earlier in the series by Toto, ironically enough, is that Jujutsu sorcerers are not heroes. They simply aren't. By their nature, by what they have to do, by what they sometimes will do relentlessly, they are not heroes. They can't be. The way that Nanami so ruthlessly tears through people who have been transfigured by Mahito victims, the way that Gojo tore off the head of 1,000 transfigured humans, all that, the way he was willing to risk the mental capacity of numerous other humans that were stuck in Shibuya Station, all that measured, calculated risk, that's not what heroes do. And it's the struggle that Yuji has earlier on in the narrative. And when I say Sukuna is a man, I believe he's a man taken to the ultimate extreme. The ultimate idea of self-fulfillment, the ultimate idea of I matter more above all other things. Innately, something that I personally believe is something I'll go into separately in another video, and I've kind of touched on in the past in a previous video, but it was more so taking on Sukuna's philosophy about power versus his philosophy about oneself. I believe that Sukuna is somewhat right. You really shouldn't worry too much about other people. I don't think you should disregard every other person on the planet. I don't think that's logical or reasonable as human beings. Even Sukuna wasn't able to do it. That's why he has a Urume. That's why he had Kenjaku. Sukuna himself was not able to fully isolate himself from the world. Heck, he became a guardian deity. Or not a guardian deity, but he became a deity in the Heian era. We literally see him being worshipped. Obviously, some way or another, Sukuna's humanity still guides him to it. But in terms of the idea of worrying for yourself first and making yourself better before you do anything or worry about others, I do kind of agree with that. In the sense that the same way on an airplane, if you have a child with you, when the masks fall, you're meant to help yourself first and then help the child. Because an inability to help oneself may lead to an inability to help somebody else. So Sukuna just stops at that first step. And I think, in a way, that simplification process that Sukuna did is what allowed him to become so strong. Sukuna's not entirely wrong. A person who dedicates themselves solely to their craft is typically the best at it. At the time of recording, the Olympics are going on. All those people, to some degree, separated themselves. Trained their hardest at whatever event it was. Sprinting, throwing, jumping, basketball, fencing. That takes absolute dedication and all the desire and greed in the world. And they've become some of the best athletes ever. Because they dedicated themselves. Ryomen Sukuna is that. He's that dedication to sorcery. Nanami broke away. He broke away from the system for a while. But it was that lack of dedication that was innately there that made it so that Nanami could never become stronger. He was stuck at grade 1. It was the worry for others that limited Satoru Gojo. Maybe he could have become the strongest ever. But he was still not just human, but a human who cared of others. Well, Ryomen Sukuna was a human who cared primarily about himself, for himself, around himself. His own pleasures, his own strength, his own technique, his own abilities, all that. That self-actualization is what leads to you becoming a pinnacle, at least in my opinion. that mania, that desire to be oneself for thyself is good if used well, is good if balanced out properly, is good if you maintain it and you work with it rather than working against it. I do agree with Sukuna on that. But fundamentally, I do also understand Nanami. And I understand Yuji. And I understand Todo. And I understand Gojo. Ultimately, my life is fleeting. Here and now, I love it. I'm happy to be alive. And I hope to live for many more years. But in the grand calculus of the cosmos, I'm no more than a speck of dust upon a speck of dust upon a speck of dust upon a speck of dust. In 100 years' time, I may not be remembered. 200 years, definitely not. 300 years, so on and so forth. But ultimately, just like Nanami, just like Yuji, just like Gojo, just like I want to leave something behind. I want to leave some impact. I want to know that ultimately the fragments of memory that I left mean something to someone. And sure, will I ultimately perish when that person who has a fragment of me perishes? Yes. But at least I got to live a little bit longer through them. And while Sukuna is a person so built in self-actualization that he couldn't necessarily care, for he understands the mortality of not just himself but the entire world around him. It's why he enjoys life until death, because he knows it's going to come for him eventually too, because he is still innately human. I do believe that Sukuna's wrong in that sense. Sukuna could leave a much stronger legacy if he had actually bothered to do something that was based in other people other than devouring them. So it's complicated. Some aspects I agree with Sukuna. A lot of aspects I disagree with Sukuna. And I think that complexity that comes with Sukuna and his ideals and his philosophy is what makes the character interesting. And ultimately has me excited. But let me actually hop back into the video itself. Stop giving y'all my low-key... Weirdly enough, for the longest time I've actually held the idea of memories and the pseudo-immortality that comes with it. Even before Birth by Sleep came out. And then the character... Well, actually, that's kind of spoilers, but there's a character in Kingdom Hearts with a very popular phrase all about memory, and they have a specific belief about memory and the immortality that comes with it and the effects that one has on others, ultimately leading to a pseudo-immortality. And I've held that belief for a while now. Sukuna got an immortality, quite a literal one in his incarnation of Fingers, and obviously his reincarnation. But even then, even the greatest monsters eventually will be forgotten. Just takes time. But let's see. Like, how back
the series struggling with how he should obtain a meaningful death, if he deserves to live, etc. To finally come to the conclusion that every life has meaning because that life exists, and the value of these lives are again reinforced by the memories they leave within themselves and others. It's just great. And you can even apply this belief to Sukuna himself, who is only seen as the strongest, the king of curses, the honored one, because of memories that he's left in others. Although I'm sure he himself doesn't really care much, he at least understands this. All this to say, you can apply Yuji's speech to the life of any character in this series, and it makes everyone's character arcs that much stronger. In a way, it can be viewed as a slight at viewers who say things such as this character is wasted, because in Gege's eyes, they served their purpose and were a strong character for what they were. They don't need to have 50 chapters of the spotlight in order to display any value. Understanding what the Jujutsu Marathon truly stands for, and how not a single sorcerer's efforts were wasted, seems to be essential to understanding one of, if not the core message that Gege is pushing with this series. Sukuna, on the other hand, is literally the king of curses. He holds a title that displays that he's both the calamity and the antithesis of all sorcerers. A cannibal, hedonist, whatever negative term you want to apply to him, it likely fits. Sukuna lives for himself and his pleasure, nothing more, nothing less. Anything that lives and does not benefit him is of no interest. From his perspective, they're worthless. A monster such as Sukuna that is as selfish as one could possibly be stands against everything the entire story has been putting in our face and trying to teach us. Sukuna winning would tell the viewers that no lives but the ones that benefit you have value, that you should live to only seek pleasure in whatever way you see fit, and that you should eat your neighbors. Man, you get the point. People will of course ask, why has Sukuna been winning most of his fights if Gege thinks very low of his character? Well, it's because people like Sukuna in real life, selfish, ruthless, all the above, do seem to win most of the time, but their actions always bite them back whether you see it or not. In the end, nobody wants to deal with or be around horrible people that are like Sukuna. However, there is another way.
And that's the big thing. So yeah, he did end up tackling it. Whenever you create something, especially a narrative, maybe art is different. Once again, like, for reference, I think this drawing is like going on 4 or 5 years old now. This is Dialga, the embodiment of time from the Pokemon universe. Is there literally any reason, or deep or philosophical, why I drew this? No. I just wanted to draw Dialga, and I think it was for like an Inktober challenge. I think it was like the one Inktober actually completed. I'll try it again this year, but that's it. That's the whole thing behind this. Is there? Let me think. Is there any like story behind any of the drawings in this specific sketchbook? They're like OCs, but like no, I don't think there's like anything overly specific. Jeez, man, this sketchbook is old. It reminds me. Jeez. Okay, sorry. I started going down memory lane. But essentially, there's not necessarily meaning behind everything, at least for myself as a creator. But to some degree, you do want to have something that you believe or something that you're told left in every bit of something that you create that has any sort of narrative or story behind it. Heck, arguably, even in my videos, I try to let y'all know about me. And what I think, and what I believe, and how I feel relative about certain things. That's me trying to leave an impact on you. And in the story I'm writing, I literally have, like, I'm not sure how Gege does, I'm not sure how other authors do it. I have the story beats planned out, and I have the themes for each individual character that I want to push through those characters, how I'm writing them, and the overarching book themes. Like, I have things that I want to show and tell through my work. And ultimately, Gege leaving the idea of, oh, BT dubs, life sucks, GG's, I guess, get strong, be swole, by yourself, raw. Like, I'm not saying it's a horrid message. Once again, I do believe there's some truth and merit to it. And I do believe in some aspects that, yeah, ultimately, unless your life has value to somebody else, you will find yourself struggling in life. As we are a communal society, we are social creatures, and naturally one must have value in some way in order to do something. But even still, I think the narrative of JJK is pushing the idea that the ends of these characters, the deaths, the loss of them, does not define them. And ultimately, even the loss of characters like Satoru Gojo, Nanami Kento, Junpei, Wasuke, all these different characters, if they lead to the culmination of the character that is Itadori Yuji, if they lead to the defeat of Ryoma and Sukuna, then in the end it was all worth it. Because together, they created something that could remove a blight upon creation. And what's better than that? But let's see. We're at the end of the video. I'm gonna let Hunter wrap it up.
To interpret Sukuna's existence in Jujutsu Kaisen, Sukuna lives such an anti-human experience that it's impossible to become anything like him in the first place. Sukuna is absolutely satisfied with living a lonely existence as the strongest, and to be satisfied with a life that contains nothing but the emptiness that comes from being the strongest, you have to be inhuman. Because humans are social creatures and need other humans. This is why characters such as Gojo...
Now, okay, so see, this is the point, once again, where I do kind of disagree with Hunter a little bit. Sukuna's human. And he desires human connection. But just not the human connection that we desire. Once again, he specifically mentions, Kashimo even flat out asks him, this is a big part of 238, Kashimo asks him, doesn't it get bored? Like living the life you do. Fully isolated, by yourself. Don't you run out of it? And then Sukuna explicitly says, no. The taste of humans is fleeting. And it's delicious across the entire different eras and times, stuff like that. Sukuna is still human. He's a monster in the sense that he nibbles on humans, but he himself is still a man. I think that's the big thing. And I think 265 pushes that heavily. It's why in my own long behind review 265, I kept pointing out things that made Sukuna human, because I think that's the biggest part. Like 100 said, People like Sukuna exist. Not to the same degree. No one is four-armed, four-eyed, double-dragoned, running around, as far as I know. But, ultimately, the monsters like Sukuna do exist. But even those monsters are still men. Anyone has the potential within them to train to their absolute limit, gain what could be considered a version of absolute power, and become the ultimate selfish creature that only lives for themselves. That's why hedonism is a thing. Sukuna is close to a monster, but he can never escape his humanity, and I think that humanity is what will drag him down in the end. The fact that he even acknowledges he's not unbound by time. He's not a monster. He is a man who eventually will fall.
Kashimo had always been hyper-focused on that same feeling that Sukuna is so easily able to ignore. It's important to even point out that Kashimo saw other people as grains of dirt, yet his entire character arc revolved around understanding why he couldn't connect with these same grains of dirt. Even despite Kashimo being a textbook sociopath, he couldn't even ignore his human engineering to desire a connection with someone or something. Sukuna, though, can somehow manage this mentally, but for any real human, this wouldn't be possible. Either way, I'm sure Gege doesn't want his readers taking anything from Sukuna's character. He's a breathing plague, and with chapter 265 basically confirming that Jujutsu Kaisen is a story about the people around you and appreciating the value that they have in yours and others' lives, Sukuna, in all of his selfishness, stands as a firm antithesis to the message Gege has attempted to communicate using this story as a medium. And I even believe that he serves as a cautionary character for those who want to abandon compassion and become just as selfish as he is for their own ambitions. This barely human deviant can withstand and revel in such a miserable life devoid of true purpose, but would you be able to? With that said, thank you for watching.
And you know, I wasn't... I'll see if I can get 100 on the channel. I'll see if I can get 100 on the channel. I want to talk about it. Because I do think Sukuna is human. And I think to some degree, Gege does want us to take something from Sukuna. Not just a lesson to be learned to not be like him. But there is truth, even in the deepest darkness. There is something to be learned, even by those who would never teach. And Ryomen Sukuna is the greatest teacher who would never be. And there are many ways that Sukuna is right, just as there are many ways that Sukuna is wrong. And thusly, I think Gege does leave some truth behind the character. But overall, I do agree. Sukuna should lose. Even as a guy who likes the character, as a guy who loves the character, I love Sukuna as a character, especially now. Once again, the Shinjuku Showdown has really, really, really turned me around on the character. To the point where I'll flat out admit it, if I haven't admitted it before, I think I have. I like him more than Kenjaku now. Because Kenjaku's been gone for a while, and a lot of my care for Kenjaku came from him more as a concept rather than execution. So, yeah, Sukuna, I really, really like him as a character, and I do think there is some stuff to be learned from him, but that's for another video. Overall, this video... Oh, shoot, I dropped the scissors. But this video, it's a 100 video. Oh, a shock horror. Yeah, the video's worth it. Guys, come on. Once again, if you ended all the way to the end of this video, thank you. Like I said, I do be yapping. Look, this video ended up more than 3 times the length of the original video. Shock horror. But with it being the case, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave absolute radiance. Absolute, as in the word absolute, and radiance, as in like bright, flashing light. If you know the reference, everyone should know the reference to that. Not everyone, but a good chunk of people should know the reference that's built in there. But leave absolute radiance in the comment section down below. I'd like to thank you so much for watching. Please remember to check out the link to the original video and Hunter's channel. It'll be in the description down below. And I want to thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that little notification bell so you not miss out on any videos that come to this channel. Also, I do happen to have a page down below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month to get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks will include the live reaction to the very next chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, and free variations of all my videos, and if you become a $25 patron or a $25 member, you can order whatever video you want. Also, I do have a link to my Ko-Fi in the description down below, where you can drop 5 beans for a short video, 25 beans for a long video, or any beans at all. Any support is always greatly appreciated. Now, I'd like to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That with the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to even thank you to our $3 members, Zena, Greyhound, Astro, Eternal Flame, NMA, Real Rare, G Prosper, Red Wolf 4765, and Paris Arnold. I'd like to leave another big ol' thank you to our $5 patrons, Sean, Sammy, Midnight Lord 21, Kevin Encarnacion, Josh Brown, and A+A. And I'd like to give a great big thank you to our $7 members, Autumn Mornings Lazo, Fine, and That Guy. And I'd like to give a great big thank you to our $10 members, Robbie Uchiha, Jay Warrior, and Akid's Void. And I'd like to give big, hefty, juicy thank yous to our $10 patrons, Panda Goat, Michael Williamson, Metal Solid Crisis, Joaquin Munoz, and Idemo Kami. And I'd like to give the biggest, juiciest, meatiest, sloppiest, and heftiest thank you of them all to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.